Item on our agenda, which is incentives to repair, examples of repair policy and repair design. So welcome to Kylie Hughes from the Department of Environment and Heritage Protection in the Queensland Government. She's joining us online. Hi Kylie. We've got Robert Crocker from the University of South Australia, who's an expert on sustainable forms of consumption and the role of design in furthering circularity. Hi Robert. And we have Brendan Folatarik, Country Manager at HMD Global, the home of Nokia phones, who have created the first smartphone designed to be repaired by the consumer at home. So fantastic. This session will be chaired by John Gatsakis from Product Stewardship Centre of Excellence and co-founder of the E-Waste Watch Institute. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Pip, and thanks to Leanne and her team for hosting today's summit, and thanks to all of you here and those online. As Pip mentioned, my name's John Gatsakis. I wear a couple of different hats today. Chiefly, it really is as co-founder of the E-Waste Watch Institute and as an adjunct with the UTS Institute for Sustainable Futures. And it's always heartening and refreshing to see the diversity of different repair initiatives in Australia and around the world, and the growing appetite for more significant reform and change and initiatives in Australia, and in particular, it's been mentioned already, the essential need for better consumer labelling in certain product categories, and as I call it, a repairability star rating, as recommended by the Productivity Commission. We have energy star ratings, we have water efficiency star ratings, the infrastructure is there, the government has the systems in place. Adding a repairability star rating or something similar is timely, but both lines up with what's happening in France with their index, but also the trajectory and the pathway for the EU around repairability and durability. So it can't be emphasised enough. If there's something that the Australian government can do is really to trial and test a repairability star rating in Australia. Really, really important. So on to the key part of this session. Pip's introduced our three speakers. It is about hearing from a couple of states in terms of what's happening in Queensland and a project in South Australia on repair, whether it's about developing policies, programs, understanding the landscape better in the case of South Australia, but also the significant work that Queensland has undertaken that is truly heading into a more circular direction, dealing with the waste hierarchy throughout, not the bottom half of the waste hierarchy alone. So some interesting work there, and to be transparent, the E-Waste Watch Institute worked with the Queensland Government to develop the draft e-products action plan, which really does tackle repairability, durability, repair cafes, training, upskilling, reskilling in considerable detail. So some important work there. But I just want to leave you to ponder one thought, and it's a scenario in relation to one particular product category here in Australia. It's a challenge, it's an opportunity, and it really is a major concern, and that relates to electronics, as is being discussed at the moment under the Wired for Change discussion paper. This really is an important potential reform, but there is an explicit missing opportunity to deal with design, to deal with durability, to deal with repair, overproduction and overconsumption. And in essence, really addressing a couple of the key objectives or tenets associated with achieving a circular economy by 2030 that the Commonwealth Environment Minister and State and Territory Ministers have all signed up to. So it's really, really important to think about these issues, to ponder this as you hear from local and international speakers. It is really a key moment in terms of reform in Australia. We are in 2023, we're not in 1990, we're not in 2010, we're in 2023. So there really is a need to, it's not about leading the way, it's about keeping up as a minimum in Australia around these sorts of issues. So I just thought I would share that view with you. As I say, in short, we need to forge through the recycling economy and really head towards a circular economy if we're genuine about it. And we need to stop this automatic equivalency that circularity is recycling. There is so much more to it, both in terms of industrial cycles and natural cycles. But I thought I'd highlight that and reinforce that because we really do need to giddy up in Australia on these issues, as identified by many of you here, many of you in the audience, and the Productivity Commission. One of the most conservative economics think tanks in Australia are pushing for some of these issues. But for now, I'd like to introduce Kylie, who's going to talk a little bit more around what's happening in Queensland. So welcome, Kylie, and over to you.
Thanks, John.
But I thought I'd highlight that and reinforce that because we really do need to giddy up in Australia on these issues, as identified by many of you here, many of you in the audience, and the Productivity Commission, one of the most conservative economics think tanks in Australia.
Okay, thank you again, John. So I'm Kylie Hughes. I'm Director of Policy and Legislation in the Office of Circular Economy in the Department of Environment and Science. So I'm going to take you through a very quick overview of Queensland's policy and legislation settings and a bit of a deeper dive into the work that we've done with the draft e-products action plan. So firstly, there's two key pieces of legislation in Queensland that I guess govern the things that we do around waste management and resource recovery. First is the Waste Reduction Recycling Act, which contains some very high-level principles around product stewardship, priority statements, end-of-waste codes. We have user pays, polluter pays principles, and the waste hierarchy in that act. The Environmental Protection Act deals predominantly with, in the waste and resource recovery space, licensing framework for those activities. Recent amendments that we made to the Waste Reduction Recycling Act really focused on embedding the circular economy principle into legislation. So along with the existing principles that were in there, we now have a circular economy principle. We changed the definition of waste so that we're now able to prescribe something to not be a waste through regulation, so that we can actually decouple a resource from being a waste, particularly for some of the feedstocks into manufacturing and remanufacturing processes. And at the same time, we move the definition of waste from the Environmental Protection Act to the Waste Act, which gives us a greater opportunity to give consideration to circular economy and resource recovery initiatives and outcomes at the same time and I guess on the same level as environmental protection considerations when we're making decisions. We have a waste management and resource recovery strategy that was released on the 1st of July 2019. It establishes the overarching framework for waste and resource recovery in Queensland. It has a very grand vision of zero waste society by 2050, and that's underpinned by those three strategic priorities, one of which is transitioning to a circular economy, reducing the impact of waste on the environment and building economic opportunity. The strategy outlines those end-of-life products and material streams that have been identified as priorities for action. We have a couple of action plans already released and in the system, and we're working on a few more for textiles and built environment. And we have our draft e-products action plan for the waste electrical equipment. So I guess the question that sort of arises is why are e-products a priority for Queensland? So just some statistics that came out of the work that was being done on the e-products action plan are the increasing generation of e-waste in Australia. There's significant valuable materials. Not all of them are valuable metals, but other recyclable materials as well. And we know that even though there might be a lot of, a semi-lot of recycling done, very low percentage of the material value is recovered. So particularly for Queensland, the work on stocks and flows that was done by Life Cycles in 2022 is showing that for Queensland, in 2019, there was 239,000 tonnes of e-products entering the market. By 2030, that's expected to be around 204,000 tonnes, which is a 15% decrease, which, that's not a bad thing, right? But when you look at then the other stats about e-products in use, increasing from 1.7 million to 2.6 million over the same period of time, and the kilos per person of e-waste increasing from 19.5 kilos to 23.7 kilos in that same period. It does show that we've got a lot of work to do to actually get into a better place for moving further up the hierarchy, but also looking at how we keep those products circulating in the economy for as long as possible and not ending up in either landfill or in very low resource recovery opportunities. So as a snapshot of Queensland, 70% of the waste generated in Queensland is in the southeast corner. That's where the population is, so it's not unexpected. But a significant amount of material is also generated in regional and remote Queensland. And this is in areas that are often ill-equipped to manage the material that's coming to the end of its life. We have been working with all councils in Queensland to develop regional waste management plans, and one of the common issues that has been raised by remote councils and by First Nations councils is the amount of legacy metals that they have to deal with. So cars, white goods, TVs, air conditioners, and other forms of e-waste. So it's already a problem, and it's a growing problem for some of these communities. And as we can see there by the stats for Queensland, the amount of e-products is expected to grow by a lot. There's a couple of declining ones, but I think they're more than made up for by some of the very large increases in other things like solar PV, like large household appliances and the temperature exchange equipment. I won't dwell on this because everyone probably knows what the fate of e-waste is across Australia. Queensland's probably no different. There's three pathways. There's landfill, scrap for metal, and disassembly. So as you can see by the graph, most of our e-waste is either landfilled or being recycled at a low value. There's a little bit of the disassembly going on, and that's mostly in the TV and computer space. So there's no denying that recycling plays an important role, but by itself, it's not going to achieve sustainable or waste-free solutions. And as John pointed out in his opening remarks, it certainly isn't delivering us a circular economy outcome. So what we really looked at was we need measures that are more in the top order of things that delay and prevent e-waste, so by avoiding reuse and repair actions. But we also need to improve our current and future recovery and recycling activities. And there is a definite need to acknowledge the role of product design and procurement in those avoidance and repairability actions. So onto our draft e-products action plan. It was developed in conjunction with E-Waste Watch Institute, and it's a very thorough and really detailed piece of work that is looking at how can we really be solution oriented so that we can achieve those circular outcomes around avoidance, reuse, repair, refurbishment, reprocessing and remanufacturing, and then the recycling side of things. So we released the action plan for consultation on the 5th of March this year. Consultation closed on the 5th of May. We received 36 written submissions, but we had quite a few other conversations with people as part of the consultation as well. Overall, there was very strong support for the goals and objectives of the plan, and those goals are listed there. We also had feedback from a survey that we did as part of the review of our waste strategy that indicated that 67% of people said that they would be more likely to change purchasing choices if there was more information about repairability and recoverability of products to help them make those informed choices. So I think a lot of that information points to what John was saying about the giving people the right information to make those choices, and things like star ratings I think are a good initiative in that space. We also got some feedback on what people think are some of the key barriers to repair. The comments about it's cheaper to replace than repair, and repairing's too expensive, secondhand is second best, and we would repair things, but we don't know where to go or can't find anyone who can do the repairs. Were fairly common themes that came up in the survey. So in the action plan itself, there are 3 main goals that are split through those design and production, consumption and post-consumption areas. It covers 5 themes, so reuse and repair, consumer empowerment, procurement, infrastructure and transport and policy, and regulatory reform. So the first 3 themes focus on extending the life of the products, and the last 2 focus on recovering more materials, but still keeping them in the economy. The action plan proposes 33 actions, 22 of which are focused in that the first 3 themes, so around the extending the life of products in the first instance. We have acknowledged as part of the consultation that it's going to be a collective effort, and there are things that the state can't do by itself, and there are things that will need a national effort and national harmonisation. But there are things that we can do as a state, and there are many things that we can do as a state. So just covering a couple of those, as part of trying to divert products from landfill and move them more into the recovery and higher up the order space, we are looking at doing some feasibility work on the introduction of disposal bans for specific end-of-life products. So that does include solar panels and large household appliances in the first instance. We'll be doing some targeted consultation starting this month, and we'll certainly be looking at seeking feedback from people about where some of those other opportunities for end-of-life products might be in the disposal ban space. So that's going to be a fairly important but also fairly extensive piece of work and conversations. The other thing that we're really interested in doing is looking at the opportunities for collaboration, so certainly with the Australian Repair Network, but also other organisations, so that we can identify what the opportunities are for repair networks, and particularly looking at things like place-based action, so that we've got that accessibility to some of the services in regional remote areas, but also to help where some of the barriers to repair and that accessibility to repair are. We want to investigate what some of the appropriate measures are around how do we measure the impact of reuse, repair, refurbishment activities and the contribution of those activities to the circular economy outcomes. And we would also like to look at the quantification of jobs and the economic value that's attributable to the repair sector in the Queensland context. And finally, just a small bit of, one of the things that the Productivity Commission inquiry identified was significant and unnecessary barriers to repair for some products. Queensland's legislation is the only legislation in the country that makes it illegal to repair low voltage electrical appliances without a licence. So I think there's an obvious area for us to start working on and talking to the government agency who looks after that particular piece of legislation. But we are also seeing that there's demand for repair already. And, you just look at one authorised repairer in Mackay. So the map shows where Mackay is in relation to Brisbane. They estimate they repair about, between 50 and, that should be 100, not 1,000 vacuum cleaners a month, and between 400 and 450 power tools a month. So it's I guess it's a bit indicative of the fact that people are wanting things to be repaired. Queensland Investment Corporation show that they have 32 electronics/mobile repair store or businesses in properties that are under their portfolio. So they own 8 shopping centres across Queensland, 5 in the Brisbane area and 1 each in Bundaberg, Townsville and Toowoomba. So there's a growing sort of, I guess, demand for those sorts of repair activities as well. So really we're about, well, how can we build on what's already there, and then how can we create new opportunities for people and businesses. So thank you. That's me. That's my contact details, and happy to take questions after the other presentations. Thank you.
From South Australia, one of our top scholars when looking at issues of durability and obsolescence, and has done considerable research in that area. Rob is part of a team that's been engaged by the South Australian Government through Green Industries South Australia to do a repair study. And so it's early days for that project, but Rob, thank you kindly for joining us, and he's going to give us a snapshot, an overview of where that study's at and what it's seeking to achieve. Particularly big thanks to both Kylie from Queensland and Rob on behalf of Green Industries SA to have states directly involved in today's summit. It really is appreciated from us that they've turned up, so thanks. So Robert, we'll hand over to you and hear about the repair study. Thanks.
Thanks. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. I'll see if I can show you my screen. If I can, I'm not sure how this will do it, but can you all see that, or is that is my screen visible? Yep. Okay. As John was saying, this was funded and supported by Green Industries SA. I'm actually working.
Rob, we can't see your screen at the moment, so do you want to give it one more go and see if you're hitting the right share button?
Okay. I'm just trying to work out where the share button is on this.
Why don't we get the AV folk, if you're as a backup, if you're able to bring Rob's presentation up and advance the slides, and is that possible? That would be ideal.
No, sorry, we don't have his presentation here, so Robert will have to share.
Rob, just give a glowing verbal of your PowerPoint.
All right. Okay. I'll put it up and I'll look at it and then talk to it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so as you were saying, Green Industries SA generously supported this. We are a small team. I'm actually only working part-time in the university now. I'm getting a bit long in the tooth, but this is very much one of my passion projects. SA has been a leader in waste reduction with the nation's highest diversion rate, 80% for some time. It was the first to implement a CDS program in 1977, and to ban plastic bags, 2009, single-use plastics, 2021. And we started implementing a circular economy through Green Industries in 2017. So my whole approach to this and my background has been very much writing about the circular economy and the importance of extending the life of products in use. There's a significant gap in various attempts to implement the circular economy in Australia has been this inner loop of product life extension through repair and reuse. And this project, which is really only just starting, aims to develop both a convincing rationale and opportunities that we can build on. So we're trying to investigate also the barriers to repair practices in SA, and to build an understanding of the community and business attitudes towards repairability and maintenance, which is very specific to this state. And I think it would differ quite a bit across Australia. And we want to understand users' motivation to engage with these. And the ultimate aim of all this is to develop an understanding of the feasibility of establishing a repairability index and trialling one in South Australia, and a labelling scheme. And we're looking forward to a next phase, which really depends on this one. And this would be to develop a series of experimental, if you like, IT-based tools to enable greater transparency and engagement in repair services across the community. So repair is, to me, absolutely essential in the circular economy. And once we grasp this, it changes how we understand the circular economy. Local repair and extended use and reuse can save huge volumes of materials, emissions, and also build a community that is more engaged in care of their products and less driven to waste things prematurely, which is what is happening at the moment. My own view is that we need to also study more closely existing second-hand markets, not only in Australia, but around the world, particularly in the developing world, because these have been surprisingly neglected in discussions on the circular economy. There's a first world focus on waste volumes, etc., but we don't actually look closely enough at all those societies in Africa and India where people are already circular, and they have been for hundreds of years. However, our view is that repair is a means to long-term ownership and also to circular consumption. And so really the circular economy, as it's defined by everyone, really depends on repair. And this means it needs circular policy change, which we've already heard about. It needs circular laws. It needs circular design and education for design. It needs circular production and consumption, and getting those larger producers into the circular tent. And while around the world there are many people doing this, we're still very much behind in this aspect. In Australia, we've concentrated, as we've already heard, far too much on recycling. And we need, in many ways, we need to go beyond repair cafes, even though they've been absolutely vital in what they do. We can't really build a viable, accessible network of local independent repairers on the back of repair cafes alone. So what we've noticed already, which is really sending coals to Newcastle, I suspect, is the barriers that everyone notices, that we've noticed, is first of all consumerism, and that is the preference for the new over maintaining and repairing what already exists, especially in electronic. The problem of locus of control, which is the TPMs, the corporate, in a way, manipulation of the system, which favors waste. So it's very much a product of our linear economy. And this excludes and kills off independent repair. And then thirdly, consumer user gaps in knowledge, lack of awareness of repairs availability, anxieties about its reliability, its efficacy, and the time required, and of course costs. And then a lack of transparency. Most users cannot know the origins, the contents, the lifespan, repairability of their products. This really contrasts with our grandparents. If you walked around their homes, they would be able to tell you exactly where virtually everything in their homes came from, how it was made, and sometimes even who made it. And then finally, this problem of what is sometimes called consumer scapegoatism. That is, we put expectations on the consumer to be responsible in consumption and waste management when they're really confronted by problems created elsewhere, which have been largely engineered by corporate producers and retailers with the compliance of governments up to now. And all that really needs to change. So in terms of what we're proposing to do, we're working very hard at the moment on a literature review, as you can imagine. But we are intending to hold workshops, both online and in person, with consumers, with independent repairers, repair cafes and associated groups, researchers in this field, and build relationships to develop a really bit of pioneering work in this area. Policymakers, product designers. I work in part-time in a university design school. Businesses of all sizes involved in repair. And if you would like to be involved, we would love to hear from you. And the easiest place to contact me is either through the university or through robert@netzerolab.org, which will be the leader in this. So I hope we can hear from you again. Now, I should probably stop there because you've actually asked me to present on this only about a month after our official start date on this project. I think maybe 6 weeks. So anyway, thank you.
A notable achievement in the absence of a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you very much. If you can stay online, if you're able to, we'll have questions at the end. But next we have Brendan Foletarik, who's the country manager for HMD Nokia. And Brendan's going to share with us what Nokia is doing in the space of repair and handsets and the family of products and activities going on in his business. So welcome, Brendan.
John, can I just take this space? Thank you, sir.
I'll get my Facebook page off.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brendan Foletarik, and I am the country manager for HMD Global. I've been in the industry for about 20 years, and this year's probably the most exciting year that I've seen out of all of those 20 years. Today, I'd like to take you down a journey. We've heard a lot about what we should do, how we've won in legislation, and what other options are out there. Today I want to take you down a road of what HMD Global, the home of Nokia phones, has actually done around repairability, recyclability, reusability, and all of the circular programs that we have. What our vision is at HMD Global is to connect the world without costing the earth. We want to make sure our devices are part of the solution and not the problem. Earlier this year, we released the new G22 Nokia mobile phone that was self-repairable. And just yesterday, we've released the new Nokia G42 5G, empowering consumers to actually repair the devices themselves. We're really excited about future-proofing the 5G market in the Australian market. What we're doing by offering this incentive to repair their customers is we're empowering them and incentivising them to repair the products themselves. If you've ever dropped your phone, you've probably had to live with a cracked screen, or even worse, you've had to cough up for an expensive replacement. We don't have to do that anymore. Now there's a great idea. With our partnership with iFixit, you can actually go and get affordable parts, repair the screen, the charger port, and even the battery yourselves, which is a leap forward when it comes to circular economy. You see, I believe that repairability is part of the Australian DNA. And for me, my first insight to that was in the 1980s. I grew up in Orange, just outside in New South Wales there, just on a property outside with my grandfather. And for him, he had this enormous shed, incredible size shed with tools all down the side, lots of parts in the drawers. And this gentleman was enormous. My grandfather must have been 6'4", and he had one glass eye. And he lost it early in his life with an accident. And every time we would go there as kids, we'd go there for school holidays and we'd walk around the property and we'd do a lot of things together. And we'd look at all of the things that was happening in that shed. And one of the things that excited me and still excites me today about repairability was a particular product. It was this ride-on lawnmower. This actually my brother and myself in the actual trailer. Now, for us, when we would go there and we'd spend time with grandfather and we would be on a property, we knew in the 1980s if something broke, you had to repair it. There was no overnight parts, there was none of that kind of thing, so you had to actually get that done in that manner. And my love of repairing came from my grandfather, and it actually came from that particular ride-on lawnmower. I must have helped my grandfather repair that, I don't know, 100, 150 times. And every time it broke, I would look at him and I'd say, "Can we fix it?" And he would say, "Absolutely. Look at all the tools and resources we have." And I would look around that garage and I would see tools and I would see parts of appliances and machinery, and we fixed it every time, without fail. And that philosophy has travelled with me my entire life, right up to this very day. And my brother and I, who are in that trailer, are ambassadors for that, because that's that ride-on lawnmower today. It still exists. You see, my grandfather taught me a lot of things back in the 1980s and the 90s, as we talked before. And there was a couple of things. The first thing was, how does things work? Why did it break? And how do we make them better? And little did I know, my grandfather would teach me a lot about business, because in simple business terms, that is what works, what doesn't, and what we should do differently next time. But the second thing I learned from my grandfather, which is probably the more important thing, was with the right tools, resources, and attitude, anything is possible. And today I'm really excited to represent a brand that actually has that attitude, that has the attitude to ask themselves, how do we innovate and make it better for our customers? How do we be better tomorrow than we were yesterday? And I'm really excited to put my personal brand with that. The company that I'm talking about is on the screen. Now, most people don't know that because we're kind of a small, young Finnish company. We created in 2016. We're an independent Finnish company, and we're the maker of Nokia mobile phones and tablets. And this marks a milestone for us this quarter, where we're actually taking assembly back to Europe for the first time in many, many, many years. Sustainability has been a part of our DNA since our inception in 2016, and we've been rewarded with the token of Platinum Status EcoVadis rating. What that actually means is it puts us in the top 1% of all business globally by one of the world's most trusted sustainability rating companies. And no other mobile manufacturer has this. No one. And we've been here since 2016. So that's a testament to what we're actually doing with the speed of market that we're able to create with repairability and sustainability. Our value proposition is built around transparency around our products, our updates, and on some things, 3 years warranty. One of the great things that we've implemented across the world from Australia is 3-year warranty on our mobile phones. On our G series and up, which is the self-repairable one, 3 years warranty. And that's been taken up by all of our subsidiaries around the globe. And we're very excited about that, being Australians, that we're changing the world together. And of course, everybody has probably had a Nokia in their life and have a durability story, shall we say, about the particular product. And since we took over in 2016, it was important for us to keep that manufacturing quality with every device that we manufacture across every category. This is our journey. This was our journey towards sustainability. And as I said before, every year we ask ourselves, how can we be better? How can we be better tomorrow than we were yesterday? And the iFixit logo shows exactly where we launched our first self-repairable device. And from here you can see the amazing speed at which we went to make this happen. And this is a testament to the attitude from top down. Everybody in our company is focused on doing the right thing and building the right products. We're also improving our products consistently by changing the materials in the devices. We're including more recycled material in our products and of course in our packaging. And we have eco profiles on our website. And on our website it shows exactly what goes into a device, what goes into the packaging. Because we know that transparency builds trust. What we also know is our customers are increasingly looking for more options that have less impact on the planet. And in terms of mobile devices, that's about making devices that are made to last longer, that are more robust, and of course have extensive warranty to cover anything that should be covered. We want to be transparent on our update promises and of course offering security updates all the way down to the lowest of our tiers, because we're also looking for ways to extend the life of software. It's not just the physical products that we're talking about here, it's that software piece as well. And finally, we want to work with device designs that are not only simpler to make, but are easier to fix. And this is where our iFixit partnership has come in, making access to user guides and online portals really, really simple and easy for the everyday consumer to be able to repair their device themselves. The second part for us is about a circular economy, and we are searching for a true circular economy at HMD Global. Last year at IFA in Berlin, we released a circular program, which is a completely new way of subscribing to mobile device ownership, which incentivizes consumers to hold on to their devices for longer. But that's not enough. You see, for us, circular is bigger than just a subscription program. It's actually about refuse, reuse, reduce, repair, and the last part of the cycle there, which is about recycling. We have so many examples on what our company actually does when it comes to refurbished devices across the globe that we plan on bringing to Australia, that particular program. Recycled materials in our products, and this is a big one. By adding in recycled material, you can reduce up to your CO2 emissions enormously. Now, for us, it was up to 40%. Keep in mind that 80% of the energy is created from manufacturing mobile phones. So by holding mobile phones for longer, repairing them, we don't need to go through that whole rigmarole of damaging the environment, causing more CO2 emissions. And that takes us to repairability and trade-in. Of course, we have some amazing repairable devices, the G22 and the G42. And in UK and Germany, we launched trade-in programs. And then we come to the end of the life cycle, which is about recycling. We have harvested over 20,000 tonnes since 2020 from our particular products. And locally here in Australia, we partner with Mobile Muster, who's a government accredited program, and we've been a member since, for 25 years. This is Mobile Muster's 25th year, and we've been a member, or Nokia rather, has been a member since its inception. All of these things on the screen here play an incredible part in keeping devices and components in use for longer, but it doesn't start there. It actually starts with design principle. Our main design principle right here on the page. That is how quickly a smartphone can end up as e-waste. What other products are like that? There's very few. It's frightening at the speed a particular product can end up as e-waste. And, well, not this particular one, this is a Nokia, by the way. It's an XR21 military standard. You can spray it with a 1200 PSI phone, but pressure washer, sorry. So don't let me go into that. But our journey towards repairability started with prevention is better than cure. And as I said before, we've all got a story of a Nokia mobile phone that you've been able to keep for many, many years. We have rigorous manufacturing standards, testing devices about force measurement, rigorous tumble tests, wear and tear, fatigue tests, and we ask our suppliers to do the same. So it's the complete chain that we actually work through to make sure sustainability is at the DNA of what we do. Now, better survivability against drops. This is really interesting because to demonstrate how prevention is better than cure and the durability of our devices, we employed a third party in Finland to actually look into this. And what they did was they basically got a whole bunch of mobile phones and they dropped them and they dropped them and they dropped them until they stopped working. And in this particular instance, our phones not only outperformed other brands, but in some instances they survived 3 times longer. And we know this level of durability is important to Australians. According to a survey conducted by Mobile Muster last year, 39% of Australians had their phone repaired. And 54% of those repairs were from the screen. So if you didn't have to repair it in the first place, if you had a phone that was durable enough to take a knock, we wouldn't have to have a lot of conversations that we're having today. The next part of our journey was around making sure we had recycled materials. As I said before, using recycled materials saves up to 40% of the CO2 emissions in manufacturing. And recycled materials are a really important topic these days. Whilst we're trying to maximise the use of recycled materials in our devices, there has to be a balance because there is a certain level of quality that actually needs to be maintained in our particular products. Now, we get asked a lot of questions, a lot. And, you know, how much recycled materials can you have? What does it impact to the device? But probably the most pertinent question is, how much it will increase the cost? We have a lot of data that suggests that consumers want more sustainable products, but we also have data that says they don't want to pay a premium for them. And that's important for us to make sure that we actually work through the balance of what that looks like, because we want to make sure that we're providing technology to the many, not the few. And it's still a balancing act before recycled materials become the norm in our industry, and it's happening slowly, albeit. However, I think it could do with a bit of a push. Which brings me to repairability. Repairability is the next step in our longevity. It's more about ensuring that we can keep those devices for longer and making sure consumers can hold on to those devices for longer. Every time a consumer holds onto their device for another year, it's thousands of homes that could be powered. Thousands. It's really important. Earlier this year, we released this one, the Nokia G22. It is built to last with recycled materials and quick fix repairability because we're heavy promoters of the right to repair. See, with this, there's no alcohol, there's no glue, there's no heat pad required. You don't have to go through all of those incredible feats that you used to do on the old devices. By working with iFixit, we've been able to create a simple and transparent platform where you can repair the phone yourself without losing your 3-year warranty. And that's the cool part about it. We will honour the warranty. The road to repair. As I said before, we are a young company and our journey has only just begun empowering consumers to repair their own phones. I wanted to share some of the challenges that we went through and then celebrate some of the success and some feedback from Australian consumers and around the globe, because I think this is really important and potentially could inspire other industries and hopefully my competitors. When designers and engineers get together, this is when the fun starts. You have designers that want this. I can see some laughs, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Design goes this way, engineer goes this way. What we want to do is we want to bring them together for a common goal. And for us, that common goal was to create a phone with repairability and longevity at its heart that users could actively keep for longer. There were some challenges though, and I want to talk through those. Ease of repairability was the first one. What do we need to do to make it happen? Is it even possible? Then we had the device dimensions. We need to minimise the impact on design because it still needed to look good. It still needed to be desirable to the consumer. The BOM, or bill of materials, can it be afforded? What is the actual cost to make this happen? And then there's the consumer experience, which was maintaining purchase drivers to make sure that that was actually possible. Let me dive down into ease of repairability here for a second. There was 3 main challenges. The first one was phones weren't built to repair. They're just not. So we needed to go, okay, how do we make this happen? So we started looking at, all right, let's remove the difficult components, remove the heating. Let's look at how we can actually reduce the amount of steps it takes to repair a particular device. So we looked at reducing 50% of the steps to make that happen. We then looked at, okay, the perception amongst repairers, or amongst users rather, is that repair's difficult. So we needed to make it simple, and we needed to make sure that we focused on the components that are damaged the most, which was the battery, the screen, the charging port, and of course the back case. So that's where we focused our energy. And of course we had some objections globally that some key regions don't want to be able to access the internals of their phones. So we had to hide the way it worked. So that in itself was actually quite a challenge. Now, for us, the particular way this happens is with the product, there's a SIM key. You basically stick that in, you pop the SIM tray out, after you've contacted iFixit and you've got the parts, I should say, you use a guitar pick style tool to run around the outside. The snap-on cover pops off. From there, you release the battery hold mechanism. You separate the battery component, the battery lead cable. You take the battery out, and then you pull the pull tab. Simple as that. Now, at MWC, when we launched this particular product, the times to do that varied from 3 minutes up to about 12 or 15 minutes from people that have never pulled a phone apart before. So it was really inspiring to see the lineups of people that actually wanted to pull a phone apart, to see how that actually came to fruition. The next part was around the dimensions and the bill of materials. Material choice really dictated the cost of this particular device. But we also still had to maintain a high level of recycled material in the particular product. And we needed to make sure the device itself matched the G series, because if we're introducing a G series product, we wanted to make it look like a G series. If you introduce a Commodore, you want to make it look like a Commodore. If you introduce a BMW, you want to make it look like a BMW. So it was really important that we worked hand in hand with our designers to make that particular overcome that roadblock, I should say. Last but not least, we had the user experience. We needed to maintain the key strength of drivers that are, I guess, consumer behaviour to drive purchases. On the screen, you'll see, on the graph on the right, you'll see the purchase drivers. In 2022, when we actually started the repairability journey, the top 4 were camera quality. So when people go into a store to buy a mobile phone, I want a good camera. Then they want a good battery life, and then a good screen size, and durability, and so on. And so it was important that we made sure that we had a battery life to do that. Now, there's a lot of conversations about, oh, we used to make mobile phones like that. You could just pop the cover off and take the battery out. Not anymore, and there's many reasons for that. If you look at the thickness of your phone, you look at the durability of your phone, the phones that actually have the batteries that come out, the back covers are a lot thicker, and the designs aren't as aesthetically pleasing, and consumers wouldn't purchase that. So we needed to factor that into the actual build of the device. And last but not least, it was about the NPS. It was about a trade-off balance between actually having that battery come out in seconds, because it was possible, but also making sure that it was aspiring and inspiring to purchase for the customers, and it was delivering on the desirability features that we were expecting. But we did it. So it's possible. It's possible. We brought to market the G22, bringing the right to repair to the masses, and the feedback was absolutely phenomenal. As I said before, the attention we achieved at MWC was crazy. Our stand was busier than any other mobile manufacturer in Barcelona in March this year, and it was evident by the amount of awards our design won. I'm very proud to be part of a company that is changing the landscape. Customer feedback. This was really important. So one of the things I love about HMD is that I get to sit and ask customers questions. And we took the G22 to the customers and we asked them, and this is verbatim from focus groups that we ran all the way around the world. Now, I sat in on the one here in Australia, and in that focus group were the age group of 18 to 35, so the future of Australia. 100% of those people said if I could have replaced my screen or battery myself, I would have done it and not bought a new phone. And that was impactful. And that still sends shivers up my spine as I stand here, because it tells me that we're on the right track. It tells me that the future is in good hands if we get it right. And I'll talk a little bit more about if in a second. The other part there, that none of those attendees at any of those focus groups had a brand new phone. They were all 2 years and 3 years old, which again was inspiring to think that we're definitely on the right journey, because we know Australians are holding onto their devices for longer. But our second attempt, which is a lot better than the first one, G42 5G, launched yesterday. Really excited about what this will do, because again, it future-proofs with the 5G capability of the device. But it's not just this device, because affordability, repairability, and durability underpin everything that HMD Global brings to the Australian market. We already have flip phones with replaceable batteries. We've got the 2 repairable devices, the G22 and the G42. And we've got old mate down there, the Nokia XR21. So we have an arrangement of devices where design and durability go hand in hand. Our mission though, and it's been talked about a lot today, it's to drive the change in consumer behaviour. To make people want to repair their phones, we have to make the experience of doing this more compelling than just walking in a shop and buying a new one. And this is where we're focused. We're on the journey of designing repairable devices for true mainstream appeal and making them enjoyable for anybody to actually replace. As I think about my grandfather, who passed away at the age of 93, and for over 70 years was able to repair anything with one eye. Now for you and I, next time you're at a laptop, close one eye and try typing. It's extremely difficult. And I think about my grandfather's words of course we can fix it. Look at the tools and resources we have. And I think 1980 is so different to today. And I truly believe with the right attitude, policy, legislation, product stewardship, that we can achieve a true circular economy. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brendan. It's always, it's a delight, it's heartening, it's refreshing when you have a brand, a producer, a manufacturer front up to an event like this and share the story and talk about what worked, what didn't work, what lies ahead in terms of ongoing improvement. There is no perfection in any of these things, but a stated objective of trying to pursue ongoing product improvement in the areas you mentioned are great. So thank you very much. Questions for either our online friends or Brendan?
Danny Ellis, Mended Australia. Brendan, what do your competitors think of you?
I won't answer for them, but I'm lucky enough to be in the industry for 20 years, and I'll tell you what I feel and see. I think they see a sleeping giant. I think that if they asked consumers and they spent more time in the environment of what is the customers actually doing in their devices, how long are they holding on their devices for, they would see that this is the right thing to do. I think there are other challenges for other competitors. We talk about 2030 as the goal. Now, we've been on this journey for 12 to 18 months, and with the legislation recently changed in Europe, manufacturers are already thinking about changing by actually having to access the battery now, if you're not familiar with that, of course. Now, what that actually means is that they'll have to start that journey, and we have a head start. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think what the future holds is that they see us as a sleeping giant, and the end result will be, and I hope I'm inspiring them to make the transfer over to repairable devices, that we all end up with a better environment for Australia.
So really it's the industry that you're in is making the industry change, which is usually it's the consumer that tries to get, and that's what we've been doing for the last decade to get them to change, but it looks like you could be the spark that hastens the move.
Absolutely, and further to that point, so for many, many years, the mobile manufacturers have pulled consumers along a journey. And then we get to a hardware stalemate. That's what I call it, I should say. And that hardware stalemate is, oh, what do we do with mobile phones now? Because they all look the same. Oh, let's make them open. Let's do this. Or sorry, the first one was, let's make a bigger camera. Let's put a bigger battery. And now we're doing this. But there is a time when now consumers, 18 to 35-year-olds, as I said, 100% of those people want to be able to replace the battery. They want to be able to replace the screen. And I love that.
Question, John, down here. Someone?
Okay, Robert, something I'd like to challenge you on is that we have the Rural Fire Service, we have the volunteer lifesavers, we have St John's Ambulance, all of them volunteer groups. And while who knows, maybe repair cafes need a boost, need a support, I would also say I'm cynical about bureaucrats who want to measure everything, measurement bias. If we know that there's good energy out there, then we should celebrate that. So who knows, maybe repair cafes need to be formalised and so on, but I would suggest, well, maybe they don't. And Brendan, I suppose two comments for you is, yes, I remember my telco phoning me up offering a new mobile phone. I'm thinking, why the hell do I need a new mobile phone? The old one's working fine. And I do know in Europe, I think there's legislation that phone providers are obliged for the batteries to be replaceable, which I can't imagine is an issue for you.
Robert, would you like to respond quickly?
Yes, thank you. I think you misunderstood me. I'm not suggesting that repair cafes aren't important. What I'm suggesting is that we need to normalise repair and the culture of repair in our communities, and that really means allowing professional independent repairers to flourish, allowing people to know they can access repair services, and of course do it yourself. As our last speaker said, repair is really at the heart of the circular economy, and we've managed to create a society where waste has become essential in most product domains, and waste should be an end of life, a natural end of life, not a premature end of life. Thank you. Yep.
Thanks, Robert. Was there someone here with a question? Annette or David?
Sorry, did you want me to respond just
quickly? Yes.
The quick answer there is that being a Finnish-based company, we've been driving sustainability and it's been in our DNA for many, many years. And when you talk about, does that legislation, are we ahead of that legislation? Absolutely. Right now, I think I've got 18 phones that you can take the batteries out of, and then you've got the self-repairable devices. So we're well ready for the exchange.
Hi, this is David Kuhn from Southern Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils. So we have 12 councils in Southern Sydney. For Brendan, I'm just wondering if you think repairability or any legislation would cut down your competitive advantage, and what might be the next frontier for you guys in tablets and devices. And I had a question also for Rob, which was just wondering if you think that are we heading down a path after your repairability index towards an Australian standard for reuse and repair, and if you can comment on how the two might coexist.
Brendan?
Yeah, I'd love to go first. Would it cut down my competitive advantage? There's 8 million phones sold every year, smartphones sold every year in Australia. I think what that would do is it would create an equal playing field for the market. Now, I also think that it's the right thing to do. So the great thing that our company is that we all have the right attitude towards sustainability. And if that meant that today, what we're doing inspires the rest of the world, not just in our segment, I say that's great. Absolutely great. Thank you.
Rob, a quick response from you, please.
Net Zero Lab has a collaborative approach to this problem, and what we would like to see is if we can institute a trial of a repairability index in South Australia with Green Industries' help, then hopefully it could be taken up everywhere, across Australia. My sense is that South Australia is a fantastic kind of laboratory for this kind of thing, because we're quite small. We have users used to separating waste, used to having plastic bags banned. Nobody really jumps up and down as they might elsewhere in the country. So, to me, it's a fantastic opportunity to begin this journey, towards making repair part of our culture rather than being something that is a problem, and that's what it's been created, turned into a problem that is too difficult for most people. And that's completely wrong in our view.
Online, Leanne?
Yes, you do. John, you've got a question from Slido, which is for Brendan, about security updates. So your new G42 comes with a 3-year security updates, and you're being asked whether or not there are barriers, technological barriers, to longer lengths of time for security and software updates.
Yes, okay, thank you for the question. It's a really good question. So a lot of the things that we do about making software last longer is about testing and device rollout. So what we know is that hardware has a certain life cycle, but we can replace that hardware with extra components. So the more newer components we put in, the more ability we have to actually extend the life cycle of the software. Now, with security updates, there is a cost involved in actually rolling that out. And for us, we have to balance cost with actual rollout across the consumers. Now, we're always looking at ways to extend that, and we would love to get that longer, and potentially that's something that may happen in the future. But what we also need to do is work with our networks to make that happen, because there's certain things that need to be, worked with collaboratively, so with all of the networks to make sure things roll out across the market. But it's certainly something we're looking into. And as I said before, we're always looking at ways to inject longevity into our software. So whether that's operating system updates, on some devices we have up to 3 operating system updates, and on the XR 2021 we have up to 4 years of security updates. So we will look and we will examine each product when we launch it and look for the best way to go to market.
Thanks. I think we might, maybe with this last question here, please. And just who you are and where you're from, if that's relevant.
Hi, I'm Candice Addycoat, a polymath designer from Scene Design. My question's for Kylie.
Who I think may have gone, sorry.
Never mind. Did you?
Just ask it anyway. Yeah.
Well,
someone in the audience might answer.
Unless there's someone here from government, we do a number of community improvement projects. We use 95 to 100% used items and materials. On occasion, we've had the opportunity to go through buildings where government departments have moved buildings, and in one case it was pretty much 2 streets away, and when we go through we find all sorts of things left behind, from furniture that still in its plastic wrapping to, in one case we counted 40 large screen TVs left mounted on the wall, to electronic equipment, including computers, left in boxes, so that the policy sort of, it's easier to move and get new stuff.
The question?
Yes, and so the question is, I was just wondering if there's any movement in accountability and responsibility around government's own recycling and the money they're spending, and there does seems to be a ask from the public to be more responsible and more recycling, but no example from government.
Well, let me...
I think that's a great question. I think there's some really interesting work happening both at a federal level and a state level around procurement. Procurement is a great opportunity to deal with a whole range of these issues, whether it's front end and buying new products and building in repairability and durability of office furniture and other things that go into government offices, but also how to manage those throughout the life of that product. I don't want to answer on behalf of government, I can't. But I think there are some positive things there that happen in that place. But I think it's a really relevant point because, again, it's about, you know, walking the talk and vice versa around some of these issues from the highest level. But look, I think we'll finish up there. I think what a lot of what I'm hearing is, and I've said this before, until we really explicitly acknowledge overproduction and overconsumption, we're tinkering and fiddling at the edges. And this is where repairability and durability is so important. And what I'm hoping to see is that season 4 of the War on Waste ends up becoming war on consumption. And then I think we'll see a very different mindset and lens on many of these issues. So join me to thank Brendan and Kylie and Rob, and then we'll head off to lunch.